And I have once again been told to pack it the fuck in, Emma. Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Welcome to another book haul, another lockdown book haul. In lockdown 1, I came home for what I thought was going to be a few weeks, so you know, I just packed, not very much. And then we were in lockdown for a couple of months. And now this time for Christmas I was like, oh, pack a small bag, I'll only be there a few weeks. It's been over a month. Again, you genuinely would think I learned, but here we are. As a result, I had no books. Well, I did have books, but I read all of my books. So I kind of needed more books. While I managed to convince my dad to bring me some of my books from London, it just wasn't enough, was it? Of course it wasn't enough. No, I had to buy more. You know, and the compulsion to buy books is very much divorced from your desire to necessarily read them. But I've got a lot. I'm just I'm thrilled. The selection is really good. Without any further ado, here are once again books that I bought. I promise this is still not a book channel, but oh my god, I just think my entire personality recently has just been reading. And I don't know, my creative spark has come back, so I have some other video ideas in the works for you as well, which I think was severely lacking last year as a result of said numerous lockdowns, because I don't know if any of my other creatives out there have noticed, but the more, you know, bored we are, the more just dull we become in terms of like creativity. There's no like there, right? It's very abstract and difficult to explain unless you understand me, but please someone tell me that you understand me. Okay, so I bought loads of books. No, the book pile has collapsed under me. Right, let's start with the thing you can probably predict that I've bought. Obviously I bought Murakami. Like, at this point, when was the last time that I did a book haul and I hadn't bought more Murakami? Yeah, I know. Because I'd finished, it's right here. Over Christmas I'd read South of Butler, West of the Sun, which I thought was excellent. By the way, you are aware, some of you, I talk about books in my vlogs. You are aware of that, right? Because I'm not entirely sure that you all are. So just so that you know, you might have to trawl through some of the excellent, quality vlogs that I have to like find the bits where I talk about books, because I do. Just a PSA. Really. So I bought Men Without Women, which is a collection of shorter stories, I believe. I like the way that Murakami talks about love and the way he talks about relationships. While I know that he's very much known for his like magical realism, I have yet to venture there. I bought Kafka on the Shore, so I have ventured there. But I really enjoy the way that he talks about relationships. Even if obviously there is like I said when I talked about South of the Border, West of the Sun, you know, it's still very like male centric and very like male ego, and still like very, yeah, it is often from a little bit more of a misogynistic sort of standpoint, but it is still really interesting to read. It's a less like over like masculinized sort of way of looking at love from like a male perspective, a male cis heterosexual perspective on women. I do really like the way he writes. I don't always agree with it, but I definitely find it like an interesting like sort of vantage point. Having read some of his longer things then on like love and relationships, I'm like, yeah, give me short stories, give me like just a more like plethora. Like just give me more stories, give me more characters, give me more people, give me more perspectives. It's one of the reasons obviously that I like, as many of you do, we like reading. Just more fingers in every pie, I guess. A cosmetic surgeon is faced with love and its imperfections for the first time. A veteran actor finds himself beholden to his female chauffeur. A recently divorced salesman opens a jazz bar. No! Opens a jazz bar as memories of an ex-lover riff and swell. Across these 7 tales, Murakami brings his wry humour and quiet sense of the surreal to bear on the lives of men who, in their own ways, find themselves alone in the world. It's quite low on my TBR, if I'm honest, but I am excited to read this. I just hope that it's not necessarily like repetitive. I guess what I'm saying is I hope it makes me feel the same way, but in different ways. I think that's the only coherent thing I can say about it. Yeah, I'm excited to read this. Then obviously Murakami is known for his magical realism, so I decided to go in with one of his most famous books, Kafka on the Shore. And yes, one of the reasons that I haven't read his like magical realism more is because I'm I'm not the biggest fan of magical realism, to be completely honest with you. And also these books are long. This book is like 400 pages. So as a dyslexic, that still daunts me, and that still influences actually quite a lot of what I buy and why I read it. Because if you put a 400-page book in front of me, my initial reaction is so I'm being brave. And my brother's read it and he said it was really good, and obviously this is one of the things he's most famous for. Like that and like Wind-Up Chronicles and stuff. So Kafka Tamura runs away from home at 15 under the shadows of his father's dark prophecy. The aging Nakata, tracker of lost cats who has never recovered from a bizarre childhood affliction, finds his pleasantly simplified life suddenly turned upside down. As their parallel odysseys unravel, cats converse with people, fish tumble from the sky, a ghost-like pimp deploys, a Hegel-sprouting girl of the night. Our forest harbours soldiers apparently unaged since World War II. There is a savage killing, but the identity of both victim and the killer is a riddle. One of many which combine to create an elegant and dreamlike masterpiece. Let's see how this goes. Next on this pile. Ooh, I'm so excited about this. I'll show you them as a pair, it makes more sense. So I bought Judith Butler. I'm most excited to read this. This is like her book on gender. It's the one that has like the idea that like gender is like performance. I'm just like so stoked to read it. Gender trouble, feminism and the subversion of identity. I was looking at some of the like chapter headings and it's just like thrilling. Subjects of sex, gender, desire, prohibition, psychoanalysis and the production of the heterosexual matrix. Subversive bodily acts. Conclusion from parody to politics. This is academic. So is this one. I just wanted a very academic, intelligent thing to read about stuff like this. At university, I never took any women's studies, queer studies, or gender studies, which now I'm obviously, as you can imagine, irritated about. I can't understand why I didn't do it. So now I guess I'm sort of catching up on the reading. I put something up on my Instagram story the other day where I asked you to contribute. For those of you who've done those kind of modules, like any things that you thought were interesting, to like form a little reading list. So I'll link that down below because it's on my Goodreads. But I think this comes like in relation to the fact that I'm having many crises at the moment. And there's so much of this content on TikTok, at least the side of TikTok that I'm on, that I just wanted more of like an academic framework to contextualize a lot of the things that I've been consuming and thinking about recently. So I'm so excited to read this. Genuinely like fucking thrilled. And obviously she references Simone de Beauvoir a lot, The Second Sex. I'm like, I have to read it. I've got it, it's over there. But it's 700 pages long. I'm like, oh god. But I'm excited to read this. I think I'll probably read the things that Butler brings up and then like go in, read those chapters. Then I have those like two sides and I can see the things work together, and like I just want more, I guess, of a theoretical groundwork to help me process the things that I experience. There we go. That's like the reason we study a lot of things, right? Just to have a more understanding of the world and ourselves. And I think that also comes in line with like some of the fiction that I've read and that I haven't liked, and noticing why I didn't like it. And also, as I said, like feeling like dull. I don't function very well if I haven't learned anything new in a while, or haven't started to learn about a new concept, new theory, new idea in a while. And that's been like very apparent to me during the lockdowns when I've just been reading fiction like for fun. It's like made me reevaluate the reasons that I read in the first place. And often it is because I want to get something out of what I'm reading and I want to learn something. And my mother agrees. We've had many discussions about this. There is nothing worse than when you've invested your time and your energy in reading something and you don't feel like you've learned anything. To read for entertainment is one thing, but I feel like there are so many things that we can do to just like mindlessly entertain ourselves, especially because I'm dyslexic, so like I feel like I have to put much more of an investment into reading, that I don't want to read something that I don't learn from. So that's one of the reasons for me going back to, I guess, the academic things that I would have essentially been reading during my degree, or like the people read during taught degrees. So I'm teaching myself. We'll see a lot of, for example, on TikTok, with the way the algorithm works, we've shown so many different people, we've shown so many different things that you don't necessarily seek out, but more the algorithm sort of tries to figure out if you want to see it or not. So there's this, you know, relationship between when people start to understand more about their sexuality and then how it sort of comes with a gender crisis with it, and how the idea that we exist in a binary is like just so limited and so oppressive. So the things like seeing beyond that, and I guess what I've been doing is reevaluating, particularly in terms of like style and just like presentation of myself, why I do certain things. So I think I just need a bit more like context for that, so that I can like have less of a crisis and more of like a reconstruction, I guess. But I'm super fucking excited to read Butler. She's one of these people that you see referenced again and again and again and again, often misquoted and misunderstood. So I'm like, let's go to a source material and see what we can get from that. Which is then another reason that I bought another one of her books. Butler, Bodies That Matter. I'm less sure about what this one is about. Judith Butler, Bodies That Matter on the Discursive Limits of quote-unquote sex. I'm so excited. I mean, this is chapters that are like the lesbian phallus and the morphological imaginary, gender is burning, questions of appropriation and subversion, arguing with the real, critically queer. Like, I just think this is fucking fascinating and I just want to know more. It's funny as well seeing so many people who, because of lockdown, we haven't really had chances to necessarily conform to certain modes of gender expression, because we haven't been having to go out in the world to tell people to what groups that we like feel that we belong to. So then you've had to have this entire thing of like losing a massive chunk of expression and then having to reconstitute who you are and how you feel about yourself, and especially what you present to the world. So I just want more books because then I feel better about myself and less lost. There we go. That's why I've got these ones. And also academic rigor, academia. Just if you read anything that's non-fiction and you open it and there's no bibliography, it should shoot through you a pang of just cringe. This, you open it, it's got beautiful bibliography and many other people that I'm going to read. If you open something and it doesn't have that, run for the hills, run for the hills. Which then now I'm gonna have to explain why I bought this. So I bought Florence Given's Women Don't Know You Pretty. I am aware of the controversy around it. I think I will probably read the other book as well, which I can't remember the name of, but it's that. I'm reading this because so many other people have read it. And I want to know what you guys are reading, and I want to know the ideas that you will have. I don't have high expectations for this. This is just a projection that I'm coming into this with. But again, it's that kind of like white, feminist, girl, boss, very individualist feminism. So I just want to know what's going on here. Okay, there's a glossary, that's nice. There are lots of pretty pictures. Okay, cool. There's no bibliography, and that bothers me deeply. I flick through it, so it's very much written from like her perspective and her, you know, experiences, and like obviously that's fine. That's, you can argue about anecdotal evidence, but considering this being like a bestseller and stuff, I'm like, I don't think that people should be given book deals just because they're influencers. I am one, so I feel like I can get away with saying that, but I think I, you know, feel for a lot of the trees who have been sacrificed in order for influencer books to have been written. Please stop giving people book contracts just because they have influence. This is why you read academia, right? It's peer-reviewed. These people belong to institutions where their entire point is to like teach and research. While obviously I stand for making things more accessible, that's literally part of what I do. Like, I do believe in the democratization of education and stuff. Ironic, I know, with my history, but like, it bothers me that there's no bibliography. We'll see. Tell me if I'm misguided. I don't doubt that in some aspects I am, but my expectations are not very high for this. It's very nice that this has pictures. There's a boob. Great. It says things like protect your energy, to date or not to date. I feel like this is just an amalgamation of many of those like Instagram posts that you see, which are just like very basic with like a nice little slogan. Something like, if it's not a, like this book that even goes, if it's not a fuck yes, it's a hell no, and then like little explanations. You know, I think they're kind of in line with a lot of like white feminism things and a lot of very like, yeah, individualist, girl boss kind of feminism, which is, while it's okay with like empowerment, it generally targets white women who do not necessarily have the same kind of systemic issues that they are dealing with in relation to their sex as well as their race. Does that make sense? Almost as in that it's targeting the women who have very little still to work through, and you're very much targeting like the most privileged women. And I am saying that from a perspective of somebody who is very aware that they are very privileged. I don't have high expectations for this, but if you're reading it, I need to know what crap you're reading so that I can make better, more informed videos about it, and for free. Oh, Christ, my life. It's very beautiful though. It might be going to a charity shop once I'm done with it. If you want to know how badly that I'm like not thrilled to read this, I'm assuming I'll read this in like a day or so. I haven't even put my name in this book. I do this with every single copy that I own. I put in my name, the year, and the institution. There's no ex libris in this. don't crucify me, but also I know that you all very much share the values that I do, so I feel like I can get away with saying that in a book like this when I still don't know yet. And some of you have roasted me in the past for the fact that I'm making assumptions about books before I've read them, but we're all at liberty to do that. Like, they're still cultural objects that give off impressions. Women Don't Know You Pretty is the ultimate book for anyone who wants to challenge the outdated narrative supplied to us by the patriarchy. It will teach you how to protect your energy. I'm sorry. How to protect your energy and tell you that you are the only love of your life and that today is a wonderful day to dump them. Florence Given is here to remind you that you owe women nothing, least of all pretty. Since we've been talking about academia, let's move on. I'm reading Donna Tartt's The Secret History. I've got like this bit left. Fucking hell, I fucking love this. I cannot overstate how fucking thrilling this is to read. In the last couple of days, like, you know, I'm dyslexic. In the last 2 days, I've read like 180 pages. Like, I am obsessed with this right now. And I have to like consciously put it down to be like, Emma, you have other shit that you need to finish. You have other shit that you need to do. This is honestly glorious. And I don't use that word ever. It's like the dark academia classic, right? So I think then for me to read it as a person, I find it very indulgent. Many of you will know that I went to boarding school, so like this experience is very similar to boarding school, except there just seemed to be a lot more drinking and drugs. How much more? But like, and you know, it's about like students doing like classics and stuff, and there's like elitism in it, obviously, that indulgent dark academia, and I know this will all float all of your boats. It's been so many of you who have told me to read this, and I'm enjoying it so much. And she just writes incredibly. Like, I think she doesn't take very much, Donna Tartt doesn't take very much of what you know for granted. So what she does is she's still like building up this world around you of like Hampton and the college. The college and like Vermont, because like I don't really know anything about Vermont, so like the way she describes the landscapes and like the changes in the weather and like just the buildings and how they like, I think she's very similar to Murakami in that sense. Like, she builds up this very like visceral, tangible world around you, so it's completely engrossing. Like, it's so all-encompassing, and like you're just almost like points of like hypnosis, you know, very like arguments about like how books can like sort of hypnotize you in a really bizarre way. But really, like, I sometimes have to like look up to like click myself out of it, to just be like, oh fuck. So in that, it's so enveloping and so like just strong in how it pulls you in. And I bought this very much because you all told me to. It's not whodunit, it's the opposite of whodunit. It's like a how they do it, how they done it. There's a murder in the first 10 words of the book. You spend your entire time going, it's honestly, I'm fucking thrilled that you guys recommended it to me. Thank you so much. Do take your recommendations seriously, as you'll see with one of the other books that I bought, but fuck, it's so good. Under the influence of their charismatic classics professor, a group of clever, eccentric misfits at an elite New England college discover a way of thinking and living that is a world away from their humdrum experiences of their contemporaries. But when they go beyond the boundaries of normal morality, their lives are changed profoundly and forever. Da, 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 da. This does not do, that description does not do it justice in the slightest, but it is fucking glorious. Let's follow this up with something else that you told me to read. On a live stream, somebody recommended I read Catch and Kill by Ronan Farrow. So Ronan Farrow is a journalist. He's one of the ones that broke the story of all of the Weinstein allegations. He did it via the New York Post to, you know, a wider audience. These are things that people had known, murmured about and gossiped about for... Weinstein was doing this for like decades before it came to the forefront like this. So this is essentially the story of that story and how through so much they finally got it out, and the lengths people will go to protect bad people, especially when like there are a lot of people protecting each other because they were all as guilty. So it's like if one person falls, many others go with them, as this book very well illustrates. It's very well written, and I think it's very sympathetic and empathetic towards the victims, and I feel like sort of in line with how the Jeffrey Epstein documentary was made. It gives a lot more attention to the victims in a very respectful way, I would at least argue, because some of the things that you hear that were done to these women is genuinely horrific, and it's not an easy read, and I mean you really wouldn't expect it to be, but it's very, I think it's well done for what it is. I think it is very well done, because like the story behind the story is nuts. Catch and Kill is like, it's a media term where they buy the rights to a story and then so it never gets to go to press. This whole tangle of like making these women sign under a lot of like pressure and duress, like NDAs, and just this repetitive pattern of, you know, Predator does something, these women complain about it, these women, you know, speak out within the companies that they're in, and these companies basically pay them off. And honestly, in situations like that, you can't blame those women for like choosing to take the money instead. And gosh, it's just, you know, this is about the film industry, and that is an industry in which I am going into, and it's, you know, especially as a young woman, you're just like, yeah, fuck, this shit is like, this is real, like these things do happen, and I think it's just important to know. So thank you for recommending that, I really appreciated it. I read it very quickly, it's like 500 pages, but like, I read it quickly, it's journalism, these things are like easy to read. His perseverance, Ronan Farrow's perseverance to get something told is very admirable. With this, he arguably has a strong moral compass. I think with anything like this, there's always that like line of like, because it's something so sensitive, of it becoming exploitative, you know, someone else's pain and suffering, but I don't think that that goes there. The same way I don't think that Epstein documentary went there either. That's just obviously my take on it, but I thought it was well done, and I would encourage any of my film friends or anyone who has an interest in the film industry to read this. This was tough to read at a lot of points. Very tough to read at a lot of points. Next up, because you know that I'm a hoe for any Harry Styles related book rec. In Watermelon Sugar. Interesting. This is by Richard Brautigan. Yeah, there's only one reason I bought this. Watermelon Sugar allegedly being a reference to In Watermelon Sugar. Idef is a place where the sun shines a different colour every day, and where people travel to the length of their dreams. Rejecting the violence and hate of the old gang of the forgotten works, they lead gentle lives in Watermelon Sugar. In this book, Richard Brautigan discovers and expresses the mood of the counterculture generation. I really don't have any preconceived ideas about this. I'm excited to read it. Sounds quite Black Mirror, in my opinion. It's also kind of almost poetic kind of chapters. I have no idea. I'm excited to read this. That's about it. And the last thing of this haul, this was a gift from my mother for Christmas. As a family, we always open like one thing on Christmas Eve. This is what I opened. Goncharov, Oblomov. I have read quite a bit of Russian literature. I really enjoy it, but I haven't read anything in a long time. Also, this is like 500 pages long, and I don't know if I like the font. But of course, my mother gets a gold star because she bought me a book. Can't really go wrong if you buy me a book. Well, you can actually, but she tried. Ilya Ilyevich Oblomov is a member of Russia's dying aristocracy, a man so lazy that he has given up his job in the civil service, neglected his books, insulted his friends, and found himself in debt. Thanks, Mum. Too apathetic to do anything about his problems, he lives in a grubby, crumbling apartment, waited on by Zakhar, his equally idle servant. Terrified by the bustle and activity necessary to participate in the real world, Oblomov manages to avoid work and postpone change, and finally risk losing the love of his life. Written with sympathetic humour and compassion, Oblomov made Goncharov famous throughout Russia on its publication in 1859, as readers saw in this story of a man whose defining characteristic is idleness, the portrait of an entire class in decline. Interested. Thing is, I like to read a lot of things where the aristocracy is not in decline. I haven't read that much French stuff after the revolution. I haven't read that much Russian stuff. It's still a thing before the revolution. I like the books with the frilly bits. I'm sorry, I like the movies with the frilly bits too. It should come as no surprise to any of you. If it does, you haven't been here very long. Hello, I've got an entire playlist of books linked at the end. But yeah, thanks, Mum. I'm so happy that you saw a book about somebody lazy, idle, neglecting his books, insulting his friends, and in debt, and you thought of me. Still the favourite little financial burden, of course. Again, quite a widespread with the selection of books, and I have once again been told to pack it the fuck in, Emma. But again, because of, you know, lockdown and stuff, I've just been reading a lot of things that I've bought. I've been going through it so much quickly than I usually do, really to my delight. Like, I've read so much last year in comparison to the years prior, and I've now had inspiration to do a video. I'll do a video on how I've been managing to motivate myself to read more, if any of you are lacking that spark. And I'll do it with a particularly dyslexic slot, because getting a dyslexic to read more is hard. I see some of you guys on Goodreads who feel like a goal to read like 100 books, and I'm just like, I'm gonna read like 20. My goal actually this year is to read 25. I'm doing decently on it so far, so I'm quite chuffed, I must say. But yes, I bought a lot of things in pairs. I feel like I bought a lot of things because of its relation to everything else. And if that isn't an indicative of a complete mind, what else is, you know, I like to see things linked together. That is very much how I function as a person. And I guess the other thing that I forgot to mention now that I'm looking at it is the script that I'm writing for at school are term 4 and 5. That's when we do, you know, studio shoots, we build a set for it. I'm thinking so much about generous performance, and I would very much like to write a script along those lines. So I guess research, like I said, is another particular motivation of mine to educate myself. And yeah, I don't know, I guess a never-ending mission to educate myself is just one of the values that I have, and things that I enjoy, things I love, and I know that you very much all share in that value, so I'm again very grateful to have you lot. You're just so smart, and I'm just so like grateful I can like have whatever you guys understand. And yeah, here we go. I have no idea how I'm gonna get this back to London. Like, I already have books that I've read, and I'm gonna have to get an entire bag suitcase, and it's heavy. Well, it's your own fault, Emma. You're too click happy with the add to cart button. Anyway, these are some of the things that I have got. I have already read quite a few, so I'm sure you will be graced with the Everything I Read in Lockdown book when this is all over. Fingers crossed. Vaccination in the UK is going very well. It's thrilling to watch. Tell me what you have at the moment. If you have any recommendations, of course, leave them down below. You have a Goodreads shelf dedicated to your recommendations. Thank you very, very much for watching. Like, subscribe, and all that jazz, and I will see you all hopefully quite soon. Bye. I'm a pretentious dickhead. Anyway, give me a book deal. I'll write something decent. Fuck. God, I'm too cheeky for my own good. I'm gonna get in so much trouble at one point.